What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. Today, we are finishing up our division predictions. We're so close to the NFL season, we can almost taste it. And we've gone through every division so far except for one. And that leaves us with the NFC West, which we think should be pretty straightforward, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you doing on this wonderful Sunday evening? It's like 9:30 Eastern when we're recording. It's almost 10 when we're recording this.
What are we doing? I'm doing pretty good, though. Jerome Ford, unfortunately, did not play, which was sad. I wanted to see him. But it also wasn't sad because that means that they think very highly of them. I'd like to give a shout-out, though, to a guy at the Hall of Fame game. Me and Blaiden were there on Thursday. I went up to go try to buy a beer, and I didn't have any cash on me. It was cash only, and the guy opened it before I realized I didn't have any cash. He was like, "Oh, now it's open," and somebody walked up and paid for it and said to pass it forward. If you're listening to this, kind stranger, I will pass it forward. I will. I promise. I promise you. So, shout out to that guy.
Can we buy a Stay Hot fan of beer? Is that something we can?
If you come up to me,
Matt, if you buy me a beer,
but then you have to pay it forward.
All will be right with the world.
Yeah, I can make up for that by buying you a beer.
Buy me a beer, Venmo.
I'm not doing that. No.
Wow, you're a bad person.
No, it doesn't count to be Venmos. You have to in person.
Venmo, yeah, Venmo me $12.
Man, you're a bad person, man. You're not paying it forward.
Yep.
Someone buy you a beer.
Not to you, man.
All right, whatever.
How was your week?
Shitty now. My friends are fake.
No, he's beerless.
First off, we aren't friends, man.
Beerless with no friends. This is a sad life.
It's a terrible life. It's a terrible life. I'm doing all right. I'm continuing my homeless arc in my Airbnb in the woods. I got everything I need. I got a lawn chair down there, and I got a grill. And so I've been doing a lot of grilling lately, and it's just such a superior method of cooking. Is just throwing some shit on the grill and just letting it sit there. I don't even use a meat thermometer. I just eyeball it.
When the ancestors tell you it's done, it's done.
It's done.
Right?
I had a steak. I ate rare steak, and I was like, this is probably fine. And it was fine. I didn't even get sick, and it was delicious. So I've just been basically grilling every single meal. Also, which the other reason I've been grilling everything is they have a convection oven that's like portable, and it just yells at me whenever I try to turn it on. So it's like I can't even use this.
Too scary.
It is. It just beeps and like there's all kinds of buttons. It's like the grill.
You're kind of like a caveman.
You sound like you sound like 80 years old. Like
I turn on the electronic and it beeps at me. Immediately.
That's exactly what I'm like, man.
Bro's a Neanderthal. Like.
What are your thoughts on Mac Hollins saying that he only eats things with his hands and goes barefoot everywhere?
That's hard. He's cool.
I mean, I know a lot of people that just like, not a lot of people, but I know some people that walk barefoot everywhere. And
what about on the football field? He's lying.
He's lying.
It makes your feet stronger.
I'm like this close to being one of those guys. That's what I've learned about myself, living by myself in the woods. I'm like, this is the way to be. But anyway,
okay.
Before someone clips this whole conversation and says on Twitter, we need a podcast, the podcast, in the ensuing conversation. Let's move on to the actual football.
Guys, when they say let's start a podcast. Guys, I have a great idea. All right, let's talk about some football. We're talking about the NFC West today. The way we've been going about this, we start with the worst team that finished in the division last year. We'll finish with the team that finished number 1 in the division. So, of course, we're starting with, drum roll, please, the Arizona Cardinals.
Bad.
bad.
They're not going to win many games,
Yeah.
man. They stink.
Here's what I've learned looking through the Cardinals. Not only are they going to be bad, I don't know if they have anything to be excited about.
It's going to be a rough one, bro. They got
Murray,
2 first-round draft picks.
right?
This is a looking to the draft very, very early in the season, like right now type team.
Yeah.
I'll be at their training camp today.
Will you?
Really?
Mm-hmm. Or today is in the day that you're listening to this podcast,
Right.
Monday. I'm going to Cardinals training camp, so I'll have a better idea if there's anybody that's flashing.
I mean, they have Budda Baker, but like
they got Paris Johnson Jr. Look, how about this? We know they're going to be bad. What if I told you Kyler is back week 4?
How many? He's not coming back week 4, and they're still going to stink.
He's not going to be back week 4.
They'd still.
Here's the thing: even let's say Paris Johnson Jr. is like a perennial tackle, day 1, top 5 tackle in football. Joe Thomas played for the Browns for years, where he was like the best tackle in football, and their O-line stunk until they got like John Greco and Batonio and Alex Mack and Mitchell Schwartz. Right, it's right. like Paris Johnson being, even if he was great right away, it still wouldn't really move the needle. Their receivers are Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore. It's just, I guess they do still have James Conner.
It's going to be, I think, a pretty brutal offense to watch, and I'm anticipating a lot of manufactured touches at or behind the line of scrimmage. I'm just waiting for the drop of that first passing map of Colt McCoy and seeing everything like 5 yards and like in. And that I'm not looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to the Rondale Moore tunnel screen offense. James Conner might not be a bad pick for your fantasy league. They have leaned into tight ends recently. They drafted Trey McBride last year in the 2nd round. They've still got Zach Ertz. So it's like, if you're going to put your best 11 on the field, what it probably looks like is getting in 12 personnel and like running the football with James Conner and just like seeing what that can bring you, if that can get you like on schedule with a bunch of tunnel screens and short passes. But, man, that's just not the type of offense that you want to be running. That's just the hallmark of bad football. And, like, I don't know, maybe they will have some young player flash, but it's like, I don't know. It would have to be McBride. It would have to be maybe Hollywood could really pop when Kyler eventually does come back, and you can have hope going into next season. I think like the last couple weeks, you really want to see something, maybe even like Russell Wilson with the Broncos, where it's like the last 2 weeks of the season, it looked okay. That should be like what you're hoping for. If you're a Cardinals fan, it's like, let's have at least week 18 look good.
Maybe. I don't know, bro. And their schedule is brutal, too. It's not even like they have a bunch of gimmies. They play Washington. They play the NFC East. They play, obviously, San Francisco and Seattle twice. They play the AFC North. And then...
It's not going to be a good team, man. Yeah, They're no good. I'm excited
games.
for Ojulari.
Yeah.
You want to see Paris Johnson Jr. be good. You want to see Kyler come back and look like himself, but my guess is that they're going to be very, very careful with him coming back. I think the offensive line is really going to stink. I think the run game is going to be inefficient. The defense has holes all over it. I mean, their cornerback room isn't good. Budda Baker, I mean, didn't he request a trade? Am I making that up?
He did, but absolutely nothing has come of it to the point where I don't think it will happen.
Right.
I mean, their offense wasn't good last year, and obviously they're going to do different stuff, but ultimately the guys are the guys. Even a guy like Paris Johnson Jr., we think is more of a project. There's just a lot of negatives here. Maybe you can feel like the receiver room or the pass catchers can be okay if you like Rondale Moore and Brown. Mm-hmm. But man, it's just a thin roster.
I
It's
will
just
pay you guys $200 if you can name me their offensive coordinator right now.
their offensive coordinator. Yeah, give me 30 seconds.
I better not hear any keyboard clicks.
Well, I'm on an iPad, so you won't hear any keyboard clicks. That's for damn sure.
Blaiden, you should know the $200 offer is expired, by the way.
I should know this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hold on! Don't tell me. I want to see it with my own eyes first.
It's Drew Petzing.
Oh,
Drew Petzing.
It's Drew Petzing from the Browns. He's a Stefanski guy. So maybe they'll just lean all in on the under center stuff. This isn't what we saw from Stefanski like more than anything last year, but it's something that he's done in the past is just, get under center, run tons of play action. And again, like 12 personnel, you've got James Conner. Like maybe under center runs with that off of it is like the way to go. And, maybe they can manufacture something somewhat efficient with Hollywood Brown and the tight ends. And maybe you can try to lessen the blow of Kyler not being there as much as possible by hitting the easy button as much as possible. But again, the easy button is Rondell Moore screens. And then the defense, I mean, Simmons moving to defensive back is something I guess I'd like to see. Have him be kind of more of a safety or big nickel type of dude in the Kyle Hamilton type of role. Like that's something I could be interested in seeing. Marco Wilson's progression. Like they've got some young players, but overall, like the front seven is just. It's hard to overstate how rough it's going to be, and I feel like you could just call inside zone against the Cardinals 50 times, and they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Call duo, build some double teams, and like see what happens. Nothing's going to happen besides you getting yards. So probably the worst team in football overall, unless Kyler like comes back real early and carries them. But I haven't really seen many positive developments on the Kyler front. So.
And again, I have to think that if they get into the season and they're like 1-5 or 0-6, what is Kyler rushing back to exactly?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if he comes back and plays like an MVP, this team is like the third best in their division. I don't know. Sorry, Cardinals fans. I think that the Texans could also be not very good, and you could have two really good picks.
And you could trade away like one of those picks for an entire team if Caleb Williams wins Heisman again, or you could just take Caleb Williams. But like their future's not in terrible shape because of that Houston trade, I think. But the present is really rough. I don't have too much more to say than that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be bad. I have them last in this division again.
I do as well, but moving to the third team, there's somebody else who really wants to challenge for that 4th spot. It's the Los Angeles Rams, who they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, if you don't remember. And they're putting an answer to the question, how bad would you be willing to be for just one Super Bowl? I always think about this team trying to trade a boatload for Brian Burns at the deadline last season. Like, what would that have done? Thank God the Panthers said no to that if you're a Rams fan. I guess the question I have is, like, where is Stafford? He was not great when he played last year, but, like, the elbow thing, although we're kind of getting up to the age with Stafford where it's like, an elbow problem could just be an elbow problem. And if he doesn't, fully recover, I don't see any way that this Rams team is good. The offensive line's decimated. They're a very bad running team. Outside of Kupp, their weapons aren't really moving me. However, shout out Van Jefferson as always.
Is he still on your fantasy team?
Yes, he is.
Wow. He survived the year.
And now with no Ramsey, I mean, we're really getting down to it on the defense as well. I mean, the cornerback room isn't strong. The linebackers aren't strong. If you took Aaron Donald off this roster, I think the average NFL fan could name
probably
maybe
zero
one of these players. Maybe they know Ernest Jones. Maybe they know Byron Young because
they would know. I think people would know Jordan Fuller.
I don't think
shout out.
so. I don't think the average
don't think
NFL
so?
fan would know a single Rams player. I'm not talking the average NFL fan on Twitter. The average NFL fan is not on Twitter. Like, I'm talking like I asked my parents, no disrespect to my mom and dad, name a non-Aaron Donald Rams defender. They're not being like,
Rams
oh,
defender.
Jordan Fuller's on that team.
Jordan Fuller was also like a
Right.
6th round pick, and we were biased towards him because he went to OSU.
I don't even know Jordan Fuller. the second most popular Rams defender has got to be Ernest Jones, I'd imagine, because he had a good Super Bowl performance.
That's true.
A really good Super Bowl.
Also, shout out Carolina legend.
That's right.
Yeah. Their corners stink.
Dude, it's just, I mean, they went all in and they won the Super Bowl, and this is what the aftermath of going all in looks like. You know,
So
it's almost like an NBA team.
The question is, how long do we get to be like, well, they won the Super Bowl. This is the price they're paying for it. But
For
like,
a long time.
if we get to next, like, I feel like this offseason, this upcoming offseason, we need to start seeing like serious attempts to improve the roster, because they had like the most.
I think we should see that most off seasons.
I mean, yes, but I think right now they're just trying to like survive the off season.
I mean, it's gonna be a long rebuild. You set yourself up for a longer rebuild. I guess like I don't even know what exactly their path forward is. This projects to be possibly a pretty decent quarterback draft class. I think there's a world where they start looking to maybe take a shot on a guy and building from there. You know, you also got to maybe question if they aren't, you know, if they're really bad again this year, which I think they will be. What's the Cup status? What's the Aaron Donald status? Are they going to want to go somewhere? What's the Sean McVay status? I mean, people are making jokes that he's going to retire in the middle of the season.
He's having a kid week 10. Do you think he's a stay-at-home dad at that point?
I think he's thinking about it.
I think so, too.
I mean, it's just I don't think he's going to retire in the middle of the season. That's my hot take. I think he'll make it to the end of
very bold, Matt. Thank you. Boldest.
But
we've seen a player, but we've seen players retire in the middle of the season before.
Right.
It's not impossible.
It's not impossible. I think McVay can scheme up something competent on offense as long as, I mean, they were pretty railroaded by Kupp and Stafford getting hurt last year. I mean, it's not going to be that bad if those two are healthy. And even from there, he was able to kind of generate offense out of thin air by making Skoranek a fullback, and that kind of wreaked havoc. And I think that that's going to be a storyline that we see across the league this year. So McVay's a bright guy, and the things that he could do something that we haven't even thought of yet. Like it's possible that he's got some tricks up his sleeve, and Kupp goes crazy and Stafford goes crazy. I mean, we remember the Super Bowl. It was just Kupp and Stafford just being like, fuck it.
They were scorched earth. That whole playoff run, they were just like on fire. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and so it's like I think I have more hope with McVay and that core to put together like a competent offense, much like Belichick and the kind of defensive mind that he is. I mean, you look at the Patriots defense on paper last year. I mean, it looked pretty bleak, you know. I think not quite as bleak as maybe the Rams offense outside the stars do, but you know, they were a top 10 defense, and it's like you look at the Rams and they've got the stars and they've got the guru at offensive coordinator or offensive play caller, and you know, they could conjure something up. But I think the defense is going to be tough to overcome. I feel bad for their defensive coordinator, who is getting head coach looks, and now it's like he'll never sniff that because I just don't know what you do. Darion Kendrick runs a 4.7 and he's a starting corner, and he was horrible last year. And it's like,
if they manage to have like somewhat of a decent defense, like
if it's like top 20,
you get a top 20 defense, we're impressed.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a top 25 defense, you might be impressed. Like, seriously, it's just Donald.
And I even think that trade deadline looks are very, very possible.
I mean, I consider it
on what they get offered. I'd think about it.
I mean, what
If
are
I
the
were the
odds
Rams,
that McVay and Stafford are on the team 2 years from now? You know, like
McVay is a total wild card to me. He's obviously in a way that like Stafford and Donald, it's like, well, they're they should obviously want out. There's no reason why McVay couldn't stick through a rebuild other than his own personal. I
yeah.
don't want to, which is fine.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do, man. But I think if you're the Rams, my opinion is like, okay, you leaned really hard into going all in, worked for you. And a lot of people would argue it's like you want to be all the way one way or all the way another way. And to me, it feels like if that was their strategy when it came to attacking and going all in, it should be their strategy as well, going all in for a rebuild. And I understand it would have been hard to do that this offseason and almost like a Chicago Bulls type sense where you can't blow it up unless you at least have like one, like you kind of need like a young quarterback to see what they've got to feel good about a real rebuild season. You do. And if the Bulls, I guess this analogy is kind of a mess, but like if the Bulls had traded
We're the
Levine,
stormtroopers.
if the Bulls had traded Levine, they would have had like no big time young player. And it's like, I just don't know if you can justify a season like that. But after this year, I think I fully expect the Rams to be, we are in a complete rebuild. If McVay's out the door, I expect that in particular. I do think there's some upside for it's like these late round picks always end up, working out at a higher clip for the Rams and other teams, it seems. And maybe there'll be some flashes on defense from some of them, although there's just, you're asking too much from those guys at this point. And of course, you've got some, you got TCU guy on offensive line. Who am I thinking of?
Avila. You're thinking of Steve Avila.
Avila. Maybe he'll be good, and you can cook up some stuff. And the receivers, if you like Van Jefferson, okay, and Skoronski is doing his thing in the backfield, okay. And you think Stafford maybe is 6 wins, 7 wins. There's definitely it's not like the Cardinals where it's like it's really hard to imagine the path.
Yeah.
But
Right. They have stars. They have a good coach. I was watching Brett Coleman's show where they talked about the Rams, and he was like, man, they had what, like 16 draft selections? Something crazy. It was the most in the NFL. And it's like if you had 20% of those work out, you would have a massively large, successful draft class that most teams don't have. So
that's their strategy. And I mean, I get it. It's worked for them. But we're kind of at a point where you need them like all to work out right now for the defense to be good.
Right.
Here's my question to you guys then. I know we're not even talking about maybe the Rams wins total this year because it's kind of not really the conversation around them. If McVay is this close to retiring to the point where he gets jokes about how he's going to retire in the middle of the season, what did he come back for? I mean, certainly he's not stupid. He can see the writing on the wall with this roster. Yeah. Why would he come back for this season and then call it? To me, it makes sense. The only reason why I would come back for this season if I was him and I was thinking about possibly leaving soon is if I wanted to stick all the way through a rebuild, if I wanted to go through that process.
I think that he could do it as long as the stars are around. I think that you could maybe convince yourself as long as like, hey, I've got a healthy Stafford, a healthy Cup, a healthy Donald. Let's go. And if at the deadline there is no Donald, there is no. It sounds like.
But then what's the point of the Ramsey trade? It's like last year, even if you thought that Wagner was going to be really great, and if you thought that Allen Robinson was going to come back and be Allen Robinson, it's a lot easier to talk yourself into that roster than this one, where you're like, we're going to have 7th and 6th rounders who are, rookies or have like 2 years of experience. They're going to be like the majority of our starters. It's you have to really, really believe in the process. To me, it seems like if I were McVay, I'd come back if I wanted to be here for a rebuild.
And the other thing it could be, though, is just contract. I mean,
the money. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
maybe he likes millions of dollars. All right.
Or like just honoring the contracts. Like it's easier to get out of a year from now because I'm of the opinion of where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's just been all these reports.
No, I don't disagree.
That like he kind of wants to join broadcasting and he wants to spend more time with his wife and now he's got a family on the way. And it just seems like there is at least someone who knows him or from his camp or I don't know. There's just been a lot of reports that McVay might want to step away for a second. And you don't see that with Matt LaFleur. You don't see that with anyone else. You just see it with him. And he was the youngest head coach in history. He can put things on hold, take a break for a little bit, and he can come back and be the hottest commodity on the coaching market. He doesn't have to do this for 50 straight years. That's a lot of time. That is a lot of time and a lot of work. So I don't know if he could just tip out the rebuild and come back on a team that can actually contend. It does make some sense. I'm not saying it'll happen, but I don't know, where there's smoke, there's fire. And it just seems like it all kind of is lining up with the birth of his kid and the trade deadline. The birth of his kid and the trade deadline are happening the same week, man. He planned that shit.
Alexa, what is 9 months from the trade deadline?
That's what he asked.
I also think there's a big advantage as McVay to be a free agent head coach. I mean, why stick through a potential Rams rebuild when you could go and spend some time with your family for a couple of years, 3 years, and then I'm possibly coming back. And if a team good enough has an opening, I can just go and be on another contender right away. I mean, you can even imagine scenarios now that would be awesome. What if McCarthy is done after this year? You could go take over the Cowboys.
Yeah, Sean Payton
great
did
position
this,
to be in.
basically.
Yeah,
and
Sean
he's
Payton
way
did this, except he went to the Broncos.
Right.
So
and the Broncos had the largest ownership group. They just got bought by a new team, and they were willing to spend whatever, So he did that because, hey, new team got bought. I can get $1 billion to be their coach. Look at Washington. That's where he got his start. They've got a new ownership group. Rivera's about to get fired. He could sign a $500 million contract with them if he were to get out of his Rams situation. I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen, but it's fun to imagine.
It is.
I agree. And I think we should talk about teams that have a little bit more upside this year and move on to.
That's fair. So we have the Rams at 3rd.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
all have the Rams. We have the Cardinals at 4. We have the Rams at 3rd. But at number 1, we have HelloFresh. Stay hot and America's number 1 meal prep. Fall is right around the corner, and HelloFresh is here to help you plan for the busy season ahead with tasty dishes delivered right to your door. Simply choose your recipes and pick your delivery date. Then lay back and enjoy the last days of summer knowing dinner is covered. Listen, parents have enough back-to-school shopping and planning to do. Let HelloFresh get the groceries and save you some cash with pre-portioned meals delivered right to your door. Listen, I know a lot of y'all got back to school going. My sister goes back to school here in a little bit. What do you think she asks me for? Can I get some HelloFresh? It's easy. She loves it. She does. She legitimately asks me if she can have some HelloFresh. So what am I? What?
School.
what am I gonna tell her? No. Come on. You gotta look at 12-year-old in the eye and tell them no. I dare you. Listen, man. Head on over to HelloFresh.com/50StayHot and use the code 50StayHot for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, HelloFresh.com/50StayHot. Use the code 50StayHot for 50% off plus free shipping to get HelloFresh, America's and Stay Hot's number 1 meal kit. But I think moving on to the number 2 team,
50% off. That's a lot.
Here.
Plus
that's a good ass deal.
Yeah, if you're in college, food is expensive. If you don't need a 12-year-old sister, you can get it for yourself as well.
You can get it for yourself, man. 50% off is crazy.
I look at my apartment complex, I'd always go down to get whatever packages I had, and I'd see some HelloFresh that someone ordered, and I always thought, I wonder if they used promo code 50 Stay Hot to get that here.
I'd chase them down and I'd say,
Sir,
need to use this code. You have to.
It just goes to
Please.
show, but they probably weren't, which is the sad part. It's like they were probably
They probably paid full price.
Full price. And it's like, why would you do that when you could use code 50 stay hot?
They probably paid for shipping too.
They probably did. So yeah.
And we know shipping's expensive because of isn't UPS on strike?
I have no idea what the situation on UPS is, but the situation on HelloFresh is that it's delicious.
It's delicious.
And it's 50% off.
It's 50% off. And it's super easy to do, man. So go get yourself some HelloFresh. Tell them Blaiden sent you. Anyway.
Blaiden sent me.
The Seattle Seahawks. I think they're going to be pretty damn good this year, man. I mean, Geno, I think, had a very legit superstar resurgence of a season last year. We talk about, like, Theo, you bring up a lot of times how deep ball accuracy is a lot of times dependent on wide receivers. Geno hit a lot of deep balls where it's like, that was just a good throw. On a frozen rope.
Very accurate.
It's insane. Into closing windows. It's just again, if you want to just watch the Saints game, that game, he was just so pinpoint. He made three of the best throws of the whole year in that game.
He's the most accurate quarterback in the league until proven otherwise, I'd say. I mean, I think that he was head and shoulders above everybody else last year. I know that Derek Klassen, who does quarterback charting for reception perception, I believe used the same phrase. Like, it was clearly Geno as the most accurate quarterback when you adjust for the difficulty of throws that he was pulling off. And the wide receivers do help that a lot. Like, wide receivers in their ability to track the football does.
Yeah, it helps
matter,
that they have Tyler Lockett.
They're all
and
still
he's
there.
Like the best deep ball tracker in the league. Right. It's like
and they've got Smith and Jigba now, who is also an unbelievable ball tracker. So
a baller.
Yeah, I think that when you look at their skill position group of Smith and Jigba, in Walker, in DK and Lockett, obviously, even the tight end room is deep. They don't maybe have a
Disley, Fant.
These are all good players. They can put out a bunch of tight ends out there and be super efficient out of those sets, and that's very important for them. Is actually the depth at tight end. So, yeah, their tackles were rookies last year and were very strong. They have a chance to have the best cornerback duo in the league year one. Jamal Adams is looking good. Brooks's development, he's recovering from his injury. It sounds like.
Is he set to play week 1?
I don't want to say that he's going to play week 1, but there were positive developments, and I think that he would. Okay. Him and Jamal Adams were out there moving around in training camp today.
That's good. If you have them back for 75% of the season, you'd feel a lot better about this defense, because it's like, yes, the cornerback room looks good, and you still have Quandre Diggs out there, but the front 7 is weak. Outside of they did bring back Wagner. So that'll help a little bit. But it's like
Wagner
outside of
is
Nwosu,
good within his role.
Yeah, he's still good going downhill.
But outside of Nwosu, who's getting after the quarterback?
Well, and this is the question. It's like this team is up there with anybody if you ignore the trenches.
Right.
Seriously, like their secondary is ridiculous. I think their linebackers are good, really.
Yeah.
Their receivers are ridiculous. Quarterback is ridiculous. Geno's very, very good. But you got to have some questions about how good exactly are they on the offensive and defensive line. Offensive line has some upside, though. Their rookie tackles were strong, but rookies last year. I question the guard play a little bit. Damian Lewis has only been, okay. They did bring in Lions center back Evan Brown. Evan Brown was pretty good. Yes, he's been pretty solid. I think that could be a decent addition for them. And I think they've got they're not strong in the defensive line, but they're not like unimaginably weak. I think that could be a pretty good team.
I think so too.
I don't like them. I don't like them more than the 49ers, but
they could win any of the other divisions in the conference. The NFC North, the NFC. Well, the NFC East
I don't know about the East.
Would be difficult, but
they moved up without getting into that like number 1 tier. Is how I would put it.
Yeah. It depends on other defenses. I think I get a lot of my Seahawks information from C-Mice Didn't Move on Twitter and Matty F. Brown and the Seattle Overload podcast. I will say that right now.
Yeah.
That like if you want to project the Seahawks and talk about them, like I think that they're probably the best team-centric coverage that you can get. And following both of them, I feel like I've got a pretty decent idea of like the team, and I don't want to pass them off as my ideas, but they've got better analysis than me, so I'm just going to copy what they say basically. But they always point out that like the scheme was just difficult to run last year, and I'm forgetting this details now escape me. Wow, man! But they lost Al.
Remember the study guide for the test.
But they did lose Al Woods, who, like, even with me, you could see that he's someone who can catch and read and two gap and make plays. Like, he's gone, and this was a bad run defense last year. Poona Ford, he was an impact player. He's gone. Anyone can see this, so it's like that is a bit of a concern. And if they put more people in the box and if they devote more resources to playing, gapped out, you can alleviate some of those personnel concerns. And I think those two are sifting through the training camp footage to like look at the techniques that these guys are playing. And they seem to be optimistic that a change in scheme is happening, and they're going to try to play a little bit heavier up front and play a little bit more gap sound and not ask so much of the personnel that they have. So maybe they're thinking they can improve just with some tweaks to like the defense. But like they were a bad run defense last year and the personnel got worse. And until Jordan Brooks is 100%, the linebacker room to me is bad because you can have Bobby Wagner out there. And if Brooks is out there too, I think that that's okay because Brooks, at least pre-ACL tear, is so athletic that he can fly around and cover a lot of the ground that is vacated by Bobby Wagner blitzing or spying the quarterback or doing the coverage assignments that he can handle. Right. But if it's Devin Bush out there for a couple weeks, it's toast. Okay. So they really need.
Well, you don't like Devin Bush, man?
I hope he turns his career around. But I don't think that he can handle playing alongside Bobby Wagner and all the things that comes with that. I mean, last year, Bobby Wagner, look at Ernest Jones. We already talked about him. He had a great Super Bowl performance. Last year, he was underwhelming. Yeah. And it's because Wagner had to blitz so much. Wagner couldn't do equal parts to what Ernest Jones could do. So Ernest Jones had to do more. So even though he was a promising rookie, he regressed his second year. And I think it stems from playing next to Bobby Wagner. And Bobby Wagner is good in his role, but it makes the other people on the defense, it makes their job harder. So that is the problem with Wagner is he can have a 90 PFF grade in his role, but his role is not, it's limited. All right. And other people have to cover for the things that he can't do. So while his PFF grade goes up, Ernest Jones goes down and whatnot. But he could be a good run defender. If they have him fill in gaps, you can go watch the Raiders game and he's bench pressing guys and getting around guy. He can still kind of bring it at the point of attack. So, I think they'll have some weaknesses defending the run again. I think that their secondary, their cornerback room with Woolen and Witherspoon, there's a lot of parallels with Reed and Sauce Gardner in New York. But that's a young corner room. There's no guarantee they're the best in the league right away or anything like that. Jamal Adams is always injured, Brooks was super athletic. Is he going to look that athletic again. So there are plenty of question marks on this defense. Geno, is he a one-year wonder? I think it's fair to maybe not put your expectations too crazy high for him, but I think he can at least repeat what he did last year. So I think they'll be a good team, but yeah, I'm not willing to put them above the 49ers.
Yeah, because the 49ers are
I think
better.
I think there's a lot of upside for them.
I think so too.
I think that you see a lot of units. The receiver room should be better. The offensive line should be better.
Walker should be
they
better.
lost some-
Ken Walker, I think, like, people pretend, or I shouldn't say people pretend, but his vision can get better, and if he really plays with a little bit more
Yes.
decisiveness, I don't think he's nearly as bad as his
Yes.
stats indicate. Like, his stats say that he's like the worst running back in the league. That's just patently untrue. I think he's closer to top 10 than.
What?
Oh yeah, his stats suck.
His,
Like, efficiency wise,
what's
like success rate, bottom. DVOA, bottom.
Really?
EPA per run. He's near the bottom in a lot of these stats. It's actually crazy because every time you watch him, he's like ripping off long runs and like doing like top
But I
1%
guess,
things
like,
for running backs.
are they saying like, oh, he just like runs sideways too much?
Mm-hmm.
Or-
It's a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
he doesn't go north-south at
Gotcha,
all, and
yeah.
sometimes he'll sit behind the offensive line and he just can't make a decision. And
So I'm like, that's the only
it's
thing I could think
it's
of.
tough, especially for a team that wants to run as consistently as the Seahawks, and teams that run that consistently, they really want to like stay on schedule. That's the big thing with it. And it's like Walker is a big home run hitter, and I'm so in on the talent, don't get me wrong, but there's a reason why they drafted Charbonnet, and that's why they feel like Walker is more of a home run hitter and Charbonnet is more of like a straight line north-south guy, because that's who he really projects to be,
Mhm.
or at least who he looked like on tape at UCLA.
And that's a really good
I think
thunder and lightning punch, by the way. Like,
Yes, absolutely. I really like it. It's a lot of good backfields are built like that. You think about the Lions, that's what they try to do.
Green Bay.
Immediately comes to mind the old Panthers with Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams were very much the same. So it's a common thing to do. I know they get flack for picking another running back in the second round, which may be understandable, to be completely honest with you. But
They
it doesn't
do
mean that
love
they're
to
not
do
going
that.
to be good at what they do.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I think, yeah, I think there's some really strong units, and there's some units I have some questions about. But overall, I see them getting better as a team, and they were already very, very good last year. So
Yeah, they're probably.
we'll see what they can
In
do.
an NFC power ranking, I'd probably have them third overall.
Head of the boys.
Yeah, I mean,
That's not-
I'd say.
I think they'll probably end up finishing fifth in the
Seeding?
like in playoff. Like, yeah, because
Wow.
if they can't win their division, first team out of the
NFC
wild
South,
card.
NFC North, both weak. I like them more than every team there.
So the question is, do you like them
Maybe
more than
they're
Dallas?
below the Cowboys.
It's
maybe.
them, the Lions, and it's like Giants, Lions, Cowboys, Seahawks. I feel in contention for that
Yeah.
third spot in the NFC, and I would probably say Seattle of those three.
Yeah, but they're not the full, complete teams that the Eagles and the 49ers are.
I agree.
Right.
I agree. They don't quite have they just have a few too many questions in terms of their stars coming back from injury or being, Geno, like the flash in the pan aspect of that or whatever. But they by the end of the year, they could have a bunch of players in like the top 100. The Seahawks could. Like, they've got a bunch of
Right.
potential superstars, I think. So,
Right.
but the 49ers, I was doing this exercise now because I was going to do, I'm eventually going to do another top 100 list. And I put my list together, and the 49ers almost had as many players that I was going to consider as the entire NFC North. It's crazy.
I mean, they're all types of
Yeah,
stacked,
I mean,
dude.
here's the thing. The 49ers are so good that it doesn't matter who their quarterback is. This is the big conundrum that
As
the
long as
rest
it's
of
not Josh
the
Johnson.
Okay, as long as their quarterback is a
One of the three main
Yeah.
guys, they'll probably be fine regardless. Yeah,
right.
I
If
agree.
it's Lance, they'll be okay. If it's Purdy, they'll be okay. If it's Darnold, I think they'll be okay too. So I'm not too worried about that. They have the best left tackle in football, or the best tackle in football. They have one of the best edge rushers in football. They have one of the best tight ends in football. They have one of the best running backs in football. They have the best linebacker. Like, everywhere you look on this team, it's like, oh, they're the best at this and this and this and this. And their safety duo is awesome. And you're like, oh, well, what about the cornerback room? Well, they picked up Travarius Ward. So it's just like,
I mean, they've got first team all pros in the secondary, in the linebacker room, in the front four, in the wide receiver room, their tight end, and on their offensive line. First team.
right.
You know, like
oh, and they picked up Javon Hargrave.
They just picked up Javon
so
Hargrave.
It's like, yeah, so the D-line got even better.
Yeah, and they picked up Wilkes, who is obviously a very competent coach. We saw him get pretty heavy consideration for the head coaching gig.
Yes.
He did a great job in Carolina after Matt Rule got fired, kind of keeping things on the rails. And his job's not that hard. I mean, he doesn't have to do quite as good of a job as DeMeco Ryans. You know, DeMeco, I think it's fair to question. I think DeMeco's a good coach. I really do. I think when you look at his character as a player and then what he did as a coach in a short amount of time, I don't think he was an overrated hire or terrible or anything like that. But his job was pretty easy. You know, you get all these stars. It's just like you can play with 4 down and never change from that. He's gonna be fine. You don't need to scheme up anything too crazy special when you've got these guys. Just like let Fred Warner carry dudes. Let Nick Bosa like just try to scheme him as many one-on-ones as you can, and you'll be all good. You know, even they had Kinlaw out there, and the rest of the team was good enough that they could play against any kind of front. There would be 3 tight ends attached to the offensive line, like just this absolute wall of linemen, and they'd still have just their 4 guys with their hands in the dirt. They would build like it would be so easy to build double teams on their linemen and climb to the linebackers. And if it was any other team, that shit would not fly. But with the 49ers, it doesn't matter. So it's like you can kind of do what you want. You're kind of in sandbox mode as a defensive coordinator when you've got an embarrassment of riches like this. So as long as you can just kind of build off the work that DeMeco and Saleh have already done, like they should be fine. I imagine that Kyle Shanahan is just giving him last year's defensive playbook and being like, just do it again.
Well, it's interesting. Wilkes is, a big, heavy blitzer. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember back a while ago, he was probably number 1 in blitz rate, like a totally ridiculous amount when he was defensive coordinator for the Panthers at one point. And they were very high in blitz rate last year. He loves to blitz, whereas the 49ers aren't a team that needs to do that. So how exactly he's going to balance that, I'm not sure. I'm interested to see it. I think regardless, like I'm not sitting here like, this is a big problem. The 49ers defense.
It's like an aesthetic choice, really. It's like, what are they going to do? And they can be good doing both, probably.
Yeah.
I would prefer him to change and not blitz, I would say. If you don't have to blitz, you shouldn't blitz. That's my defensive philosophy.
But I mean, they're usually a zone-heavy team that blitzes a lot, and the Niners didn't blitz like that, and we'll see how much of it goes to what Wilkes exactly wants to do. I would agree that my prediction is that they don't, try to reinvent the wheel here or anything. But it's maybe a little bit more blitzing.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah, I could see some like Hufanga or some Greenlaw blitzes.
They hired him for a reason. But they must like what he does.
Yeah.
It'll be a blend of both.
Right.
But I think I think it's going to be more of like a pass the torch and then add your own flair instead of make a new defensive playbook or like make a new defensive philosophy. Yeah. So
the question for San Francisco is how do you get to the point where you're actually completing the job? They have been so close for 4 years now, where it's like NFC Championship game, lose, Super Bowl lose, NFC Championship game, like this is every year now.
Well,
so how do they get over that hump is the question.
Ideally, it would be Trey Lance, but
Yeah.
I think his problem is that he hasn't played football in 100 million years. He's played like 2 games in the last
Right.
however long, man. And I think that's a huge problem. And I don't want to buy into things I'm hearing from camp too much. I mean, I always remember the stories about Garoppolo, throwing 5 interceptions, and then he was pretty good for the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
But, dude, like the reports are not good about Trey Lance right now at all. And I mean, it'd be one thing if he was struggling or trying new things or getting acclimated. It's another thing when the report said he's not getting first team reps.
Yeah, I think it really could be Purdy week 1. And, I mean, Shanahan's player management is not always like he benched Ayuk for that long time. And they drafted Trey Sermon and then immediately kicked him out. And who knows if that was good or bad. You never really can know what Shanahan is cooking, I guess. And I'm not even agreeing or disagreeing with him here. It just is like, I have no idea what he's ever doing. Like it could be Darnold out there week 1. It wouldn't surprise me with Shanahan.
But, I think I'd also like to say about the quarterback situation, you can't really say that they can't do it with Purdy because we don't know. I mean,
Right.
what do the 49ers do differently? I don't know. Have any one of these 3 guys active and healthy in the NFC Championship game?
Right. That's the thing. Purdy was like not able to throw in the NFC Championship game.
And we're talking about you can't get down to your 4th string quarterback. You just can't. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
Whether or not they can do it with an average quarterback, I think they probably can. It hasn't worked out for him. Obviously, you've got the whole big missed throw from Garoppolo or whatever, and then last year, and those are like kind of the 2 things you circle. But
you need the breaks.
If I'm the 49er, if I'm Shanahan, I feel like I don't need some superstar quarterback to come save me, and I don't need to gamble everything on Lance being that, especially if he looks bad in camp. And I think Lance has just had a really, really rough go of it. I think he's had a lot of breaks really go against him. But if you're Shanahan, you should say I was 9-1 with Purdy with the last pick in the draft. Even if we go to Darnold, I think he'll do really well with Darnold too. And Darnold's got a pretty solid arm. If you feel like you can make things easy for him, he can probably get it done. There were points last year where Panthers fans were kind of
Darnold didn't play that bad,
and that was a terrible, terrible offense. No, he's not that bad.
He didn't.
He's not, and he's got enough maybe creation upside. It's there within Darnold in a way that maybe it isn't with Purdy. So I don't know, dude. Like this is the same 49ers team. What they do at quarterback, I don't care. I don't care. Whatever. It's probably not going to be. It's probably going to be like a game manager, and we'll see if the rest of the roster is so stacked enough that it doesn't matter. Okay. All I'll say is that if they do get it done with a game manager, that does not mean the game manager is a top 10 quarterback. That does not mean that the game manager is awesome. It means that Shanahan and the rest of the offense is awesome.
Yeah.
They've got some solid guys. Purdy is very, very solid, especially since, he's in a really tough situation. Last pick in the draft, starting 10 games for a team that wants to win right now. That's brutal, and he did well. But there does need to be some recognition of what the roles are. But if we can get over all the people who are just so ready to hate on Trey Lance stuff and people who want to hype up Purdy, if we can just get past that and look, okay, quarterback, they'll probably be fine. Whatever.
Yeah, I think that it comes down to getting the breaks in the playoffs because I think, we've seen Nick Foles. Yeah, we've seen Nick Foles win a Super Bowl recently. We've seen some game managers get to the big stage and even win on the big stage. So, yeah, I mean, they've been there. They were a big throw from Garoppolo away. Last year, who knows what would have happened. I think they'd have a real shot to beat the Eagles if they had a real quarterback playing in that game. It was the 2 best rosters in the league playing against each other probably overall. The Chiefs are up there too, obviously.
Right.
And I think that could repeat. I worry about the offensive line a little bit. Trent Williams is getting up there in age. I would say that he maybe isn't quite as maybe powerful as he used to be. And the rest of the offensive line, if you were to go like 5 down and create one-on-ones across the board, you could win those. Like McGlinchey is gone. The interior isn't any all-pros or anything like that, or even pro bowlers. I think they're a bit small. They can get pushed around a little bit if you wanted a 2 gap and get into a bare front. This is something I was watching Miami do this to them earlier today. It's like Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins were just bench pressing a man. So if you have a good front, I think that you can create some havoc, but then it's up to your linebackers to stay disciplined against all the motion and different looks that you see. And if you have 5 down and you have 5 rushing, is Ayuk just going to win at the line of scrimmage and the ball is out in 1 second and it doesn't matter, and then they catch it on the run and they score a touchdown because it's Debo and it's Ayuk. So it's like,
or you get Mike Caffrey in open space and he makes someone miss.
Right. It's like they've almost got to find ways to if I was there, I don't know what I would do. I maybe would just say, let's rush 3, drop $1 million into coverage, take away the crossers, make Purdy hold the football and just live with the results. That might be my move. Yeah. Is I know that the offensive line is bad and it looks like we can take advantage of it, but I'm putting as many people in the middle of the field as I humanly can and try to prevent and just get them to hold the football for as long as possible and hope one of our 3 can eventually beat the lineman. But that's not a great strategy either. There's just not a lot of great answers, because then it's well, what if they just run it down your throat if you're really going to kind of be playing to –
Yeah.
Obviously, you can –
and Elijah Mitchell's healthy this year.
He just got banged up in training camp, though. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be out during the regular season. But you're right. Elijah Mitchell, hopefully he is. Because he's an effective back for them. And got a lot of the carries, actually, when he came back last year. What did he get hurt? Week 1 last year? I remember Nate Tice hyping him up on the Athletic Football podcast. And then he got hurt immediately, didn't he? I believe I remember this happening. I was looking at last year, and last year their rushing DVOA was actually outside of the top 10. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe this line is a bit of a problem. As much Shanahan schemes things up, maybe they just don't have the guys to consistently move the football. And then I looked a little bit deeper into it, and all the worst weeks rushing were weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, basically. And it's McCaffrey was traded week 6. So it's I don't know how much stock to put in that.
Yeah. Elijah Moore had 17 offensive snaps in
Mitchell,
week 1.
Mean?
And then he did not play.
You said Moore.
Yeah. What did I say?
Moore.
Oh, Elijah Mitchell had 17 offensive snaps in week 1, did not play again until week 9, where he had 25, then he had 13 in week 10, 15 week 11, didn't play again until he had 10 in week 17. And then he had some snaps in the playoffs, though.
Yeah.
He didn't play in the Super Bowl.
Well, they didn't go to
the NFC. Yeah. He didn't play in the NFC Championship, I mean. Ultimately, I don't know if this team is better than the Eagles, but, I mean, top to bottom, they have one of the best rosters in football. Like Theo mentioned earlier, they have all pros across the board. It's hard to imagine a world where they don't win this division. A lot would have to go in the Seahawks' favor, and a lot would have to go against the 49ers. So I have them winning the NFC West. I think most people would agree, and I think this is the easiest division to rank.
It's one of them. I've got him at 1, and I assume Theo does too, who we just lost.
Yeah, his phone died. But we know he's dealing with moving right now, and it's kind of a hassle. So we'll cut him some slack. Put a hope your phone is okay in the chat or something. I don't know. Or go buy some merch so that
he can get an apartment.
So that he can get an apartment. So true. Yeah, if you don't get merch, Theo's gonna be homeless, and that's gonna be on you. Guilt trip our fans into getting merch. Well, I think that pretty much wraps things up. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, it's been an absolute blast. And until next time, from the Stay Hot Boys, we will catch you on the flippity flop.